So the completing the square that we're gonna do, it's gonna have two uses. They're completely different than each other, but they both use the same process to find the answers. One, we're gonna solve, we're gonna find answers. So like the last section, we found answers by factoring. This section, we're gonna find answers by completing the square. The other method we're gonna use this for is for writing equations in vertex form, which we haven't done for a while. And you'll kind of get a refresher on it. Vertex form is a way to graph parabolas where you can look at the equation and immediately know where it should be graphed. Like you know where the vertex is, which is why it's called vertex form. And we traditionally use these methods on things that can't be factored. So factored equations are traditionally the easiest ones because the numbers work out nice. So completing the square is usually a method that you do when the answers don't work out. And so this is an easier way to do it for bad answers. Okay, so this is a fully worked out problem on how to find solutions. So I thought it would be good for you to see how they are done before we do one together. And I think what I'll kind of do is I'll give you guys a minute or two to write this down. And then I'll call on people to try to maybe help explain the steps. But this is an overview of what we're going to do. Morgan, now I feel bad I picked you for doing the rolling now that you're like coughing and not feeling great. So now as you guys are writing this down, if something up there doesn't make sense, that's okay. Definitely ask as we're going through this. But my goal was to go through each line to tell you what we're doing and why, so that you'd be able to do them on your own. It is freezing in this room today. This room is usually really hot in the morning, and then like 10 o'clock it kind of kicks on the air, but today's cold. Like I didn't even wear a jacket to school, and I really want a jacket right now. Okay, let's roll somebody. Angelina. So I was thinking the first thing we would focus on was that. Where did that +9 come from? This is what happens when you can't teach at the board anymore. Now you gotta teach from the desk. Why what? Why can't I teach from the board? I'm too fat. I don't fit up there. I need room. That encloses my personal bubble. Was that your phone, Sully? Oh yeah, Angelina. I forgot about that.
So you, like, the work underneath, so it says 6/2 + 3, and then that 3 was fill in the blank for the x in square.
Perfect. So what we did was we completed the square. So there wasn't really like a spot written here, but we purposely did it ourselves. So we wanted to put in a number in that empty space that completes the square. And so the way we did that was that worksheet. You take half of this number with the x, and then you square it. So that would give you 9. Let's go with another person. We're going to roll a bunch today. 21 is Elizabeth. How come I added 9 over here as well? Perfect. So the fact that I added 9, because this is an equation we're trying to solve, you can't just randomly add a number, because I mean it changes what this side of the equation is worth. So then we'd have to add 9 to the other side too. So this is just like when you're solving equations, you got to do something to both sides. So if I add 9 here to complete the square, I add 9 here as well. Good. Okay. Who do we have?
30.
30 is Nucci. Where did I get this plus 3 from in the squared?
You divided 6 by 2.
Good. So the number that is cut in half goes in the parentheses squared. So this was the right-hand side of your worksheet. Left-hand side, you had to figure out this number. Right-hand side, you wrote it as parentheses squared. And we're going to be using that information to solve these problems. Right-hand side was 36 because I just added the two numbers together. Sure, next person, we'll do that. 15 is Diego. How come I took a square root to both sides? But like, why did I choose to do a square root to both sides?
36 is a perfect square.
That is true. Not why I chose the square root. But you're right about the 36 is a perfect square. And it's okay if you're not sure. I mean,
To get rid of that, like, square.
Good. We chose the square root because we wanted to cancel off this squared. Now this was from a couple sections ago, so this might have been distant in your mind right now. So we did square root to cancel off the squared, and when you do a square root of a squared, gives you plus and minus. That's going to be hard to remember to write. The square root of the squared is plus and minus. And then the last step, I think most of you are okay with the last step, except for the answers. So you subtract 3 to get x by itself. And normally this was a square root that didn't work out nice. I think this might be the first example we did that worked out nicely. So if we have -3 plus and minus 6, and the order you write these doesn't matter, the whole deal with the plus and minus is it's two separate numbers. So you would do -3 plus 6, which is up there, and then -3 minus 6, which is down there. So it gives you two separate answers. If these numbers are nice and they can go together, you do it. If they're not nice, like if this is square root of 8, well, you can't add them, so you just write it like that and leave it. Okay, I know that was a lot of steps. Certainly ask away if there's something up there that seems confusing. Oh, sorry.
How'd you get from the x squared plus 6x plus 9 to the x plus 3 squared?
So the are you okay with the plus 9?
Yeah.
Okay. So we purposely added the 9 because that makes this whole thing I just circled. They call it a perfect trinomial square, but that part doesn't matter. If I factor this thing that I just circled, it would factor into x plus 3, x plus 3. So we chose 9 because it would make factors of the same number. So then we're able to write it as squared. So we're going to purposely add a number here that makes it a perfect square that allows us to write it as a parentheses squared. So that's going to be the steps to do this.
Then where did that 6x go? Like,
So if I were to FOIL out x plus 3 and x plus 3, that would give me x squared, 3x, which is 6x.
okay.
So when you factor something, the information's kind of like hidden in there.
Okay, thank you.
So it's always gonna be written like just x plus 3 squared, like whatever number it is, like squared, it won't ever say like a 2.
Like separate like this?
Yeah.
There isn't anything wrong with writing it separate like this. The reason we write it as a squared is because then we can cancel off the squared symbol. So it's not wrong if you write this, but what'll happen is you won't be able to figure out how to finish the problem. So you can always write it directly as squared. Yeah. Well, let's do this one together, because I have a feeling you guys would like to do it together rather than try it on your own already. I'm like ready to wear lined pants already. I normally wear shorts until it's freezing temperature, and I'm just cold now. I even started wearing socks and shoes. I'm excited for April so I can go back to my normal outfit. Maybe I should just move to warmer weather. Okay, Morgan, who do we have? 32, which is Grace. Any thoughts on what we should do to start? Look, if you want me to help you, what's different about this one than the one we just did? There's one thing that's a little bit different.
The -6.
Yeah. So the question that we just did on the previous page, it was equal to a number to start with, and we're going to want that. We're going to want it equal to a number to be able to complete the square. So that's good observation. So we're going to add 6 to both. Oh, I still got it on the highlighter. So we're going to add 6 to both sides so that that number isn't in the way. When we're doing completing the square, we want it to be kind of open and able for us to work with it. So if it helps you, some people like to write plus blank to be able to figure, like as a mental reminder. You don't have to, but I know some students just like to do that to like be able to separate things. Okay, do you want to keep going? Do you want somebody else to go? Oh, excellent. Okay, what do we do next?
You do half of 4.
Okay, good. 2. Next person? 3? That's a small number. Oma. Okay, so Grace just took half of 4 and got 2. Do you remember what we do with that halved number? Good. So we square it. So in this blank, we're going to do 2 squared. So 4. And then we add it to both sides. Now we are purposely trying to write this information as something squared. And I know I'm writing this up here for you guys. There's tons of steps in this, and that's why it's kind of hard to get down. But once you get it down, it's the same every time. Morgan, who did you roll? Oh wait, I saw you have a whole bunch of people roll ready to go.
Yeah.
Nice.
19.
19 is Emma.
You want to do
What number goes in there?
+2.
Perfect. So the number that you cut in half goes in there. So the 4 divided by 2, right there. Right-hand side, you just add them together. So 10. Okay, next person. Good job, Emma.
16.
Cole.
You square root it.
Good. So square root both sides. I can write that if that helps. And then we're doing the square root of a squared plus or minus. The square root of 10 isn't anything, so I just write it as square root of 10. Okay? And then the last step, which probably is semi-obvious to a lot of you by now. Who's going to help me with the last step?
28.
28 is Emma.
You do 2 plus and minus the square root of 10.
Very close. So we have to subtract 2 from both sides. So then you'd say negative 2 plus and minus square root of 10. Now we usually write the number first and the square root last. It's not wrong if you write the square root first, but then kind of my little tip to you is put like a little hook on the square root, so then whoever's reading it would know they're different.
For the plus or minus, are we like always just gonna do it on one side?
Yes, because the square root of the squared on the left-hand side is what creates plus or minus on the right-hand side.
Are we always gonna have to do that?
For these types of problems, yeah. Problems throughout the chapter or book, not always, no.
So when I first looked at this, I thought that the equation was already set because like the one before that we did already had like plus 9 and this one had like -6. So I was just confused why we didn't just go off of like why didn't we just do that equation? Why did we have to get rid of the -6?
So you see how it says x squared plus 4x plus 4 right there? And that's considered like the perfect thing, so I can write it as something squared. If I decided to leave this -6 there, and I know that this needs to say plus 4 to be correct, like if you're okay knowing that you would have to add 10 to both sides to make it plus 4, you could do that. And you wouldn't have to move the number. Most students get a little bit screwed up doing that. So to kind of avoid that confusion, we move the number over so that you don't have to try to like refigure the numbers in your head. So you don't have to if you don't want, but I usually just teach it that way so that it's less confusing, but yeah.
And then do we do what we did for the first problem, where we do like?
Oh, like at the end?
Yeah.
So on this one, we're not going to, because square root of 10 is not like a nice answer.
Yeah.
So we don't have to separate them. Like if you wanted to write the answer as -2 plus root 10 and -2 minus root 10, you can. And that would be correct. So like if it's easier for you to get in the habit of just always writing 2 answers, you could.
Okay.
Do you guys feel like you can try one on your own? All right, I'll put one up here, see if you can do it on your own. I will tell you right now, this is as difficult as you run into. I wanted to pick a little bit harder one for the one to try on your own, because if you can do this one, you can do any of them. Yeah.
Once it's a fraction, you keep it as a fraction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually going to be easier not to make it a decimal. And some of you may not be done when we start this together, and that's okay. Stuck? Yeah, that'll happen too. Getting stuck isn't a terrible thing either. Like I said, I tried picking the hardest one, so don't feel bad if you can't do it on your own yet. This is as hard as it gets. If I remember right, I think the answer was 4 plus or minus square root of 89 over 2. No, that can't be right. No, it must be 9. Probably 9 plus or minus. So just kind of ahead of time, maybe I'll give you see if you did it right. Who's going to help us go first? Question? Oh, you were volunteering. What number did you have?
31.
31. Actually, it would have been funny if it was yours. 31 is Deontay. What'd you do first?
Add 2 to both sides.
Good, good, good. Okay, so we've got x squared minus 9x equals positive 2. Now I left a space there because I know I'm going to be putting a number in. That's what this method does. Okay? What number?
20.
Jazz. Oh, question, go for it.
Is it always like even if it's subtracting like x squared minus whatever number x, it's always adding for a reason?
Yeah, because when you square it, it's positive.
Okay.
Where do I go from here?
You divide the -9
Good, divide that by 2,
and then
and then square it. Yep, so negative 9 over 2 squared is going to be negative 9 squared is 81. 2 squared is 4. I think this one's very similar to number 10 that I think we put up, yep. Oh, it wasn't a 9, it was a, whatever, I'm just gonna leave that for now. Let's just erase this one that I was trying to remember the answer. Okay, so then I need to write it as something squared equals something. Who's gonna help me with the parentheses?
27.
27. Oh, were you asking a question? Go for it.
Why do you divide by 2 and not by 3?
And not by 3?
Yeah, like if it's like,
Are you saying 3 because it would work nice?
yeah.
Yeah. So you're always going to have to cut it in half because a parentheses squared would mean that we have 2 parentheses.
Oh,
So we're dividing it into 2 pieces.
okay, got it.
Yep. So it's always 2 even if it doesn't work out good.
Okay.
I think you said me a number, but I forgot it.
27.
George,
What do we, wait, okay.
what do
so
I put in that parentheses?
you put in x minus 9 over 2 squared.
Perfect. Perfect. This number right there goes in that spot. Yes, question.
I put 81 over 4.
You can, but it'd be wrong. So the 81 over 4 is the squared number, only is going to be added to both sides. The number that's cut in half is always going to be the one that goes in the parentheses.
So when I wrote it down, I said x plus parentheses -9 over 2 parentheses squared. Is that
Say it again.
so instead of saying minus.
Oh, plus negative.
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yep. And then I need to add 2 and 81 over 4, which doesn't work out great because they both need to be fourths. So I'm going to write it as 2 over 1 and then times 4 times 4. So 8 plus 81 would be 89 over 4. And I know you're really going to want to make decimals. You're not going to have a calculator to make decimals with, so that's why I'm trying to practice all of this without you. Okay, and to be honest, these steps right here is 95% of the work. This is where all the mistakes will be made if you make them.
Like, will you mark it wrong if we do write decimals?
No, because if you're doing it in your head, that's fine. Where you're going to have difficulty is decimals are harder to square than a fraction. So I won't mark it wrong. It's just going to be harder for you to do. So the steps from here is where I'm going to guess you guys are pretty good at. Probably just getting to this point is the hardest part. I'm going to go through these quicker just to save a little bit of time so that we have time for everything else in class and a little time for work. Yeah.
Why did you times 2 by 4?
Common denominator. So for me to add a whole number and a fraction, I made 2 into a fraction, and then common denominator. So that's what the times 4 was. Yep. So the next step is take square root of both sides. Plus and minus the right-hand side, which isn't very nice. So square root of 89 over 4 is whatever, I don't know. When you're doing the square root of a fraction, you can actually do the square root of the top and bottom separate. So square root of 4 is a nice answer. I wrote 84. I think that's because in my head I was a step ahead. Square root of 4, and so I wrote a 4. Now, do know, I'm not going to mark it wrong if you write square root of 89 over 4, because it is correct. I'm trying to show you the answers that you would see like in a book, or if you try to get help from somewhere. These are the answers you'll see. But there's going to be lots of ways you can write the correct answer. So, doesn't mean yours is wrong. And then I add 9 over 2 to both sides. And so I would guess a lot of you would write 9 over 2 plus and minus. You'd probably write square root of 89 over 4, which is all right. Yep, Diego?
Why is it?
Wait.
Why does it change from 89 over 4 to 89? Oh,
The
square root.
The square root is only on the top.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah.
The answer you're going to see in a textbook is, since they're both over 2, is they'll combine them and write it like this. And it's okay if you don't, but I'm going to show you the correct way to write it, because that's what you're going to see. So I'm okay with this answer, obviously the book answer. I would also be okay with you guys writing, I would mark this correct on the test. I would bet a lot of you would write it like this. So that's still right. It's still correct. So when you guys are doing your practice questions and the homework, this is how they'll write the answer in the book. So just be aware of that. Okay, again, this is as hard as they get. Most of them will be easier. Let's go to vertex form so you guys can have a little bit of time to work in class to get some help. So this is vertex form, and this is how the problems are going to be done. There's actually far fewer steps because you're not actually solving for anything. So vertex form, you're not finding answers, it's just going to be an equation. And vertex form is a way that something is written so that you can graph it easily. So it's not going to be equal to a number, it's going to be equal to like f of x or y or something. So there's a lot less steps, but it can feel more confusing because you're not solving it. And I know in the mind of a lot of students, that's the confusing part. So this is vertex form. Now the first thing you're gonna see is that minus 13, we would usually add it to the other side so that we can kind of make space for completing the square. But you can't add it to the other side on this one because that's like the y equals. Like, if you add it to the other side, your equation won't really make any sense. So rather than adding it to the other side, we kind of just ignore it. We just like push it over to the side and we just don't use it at first. So we're just gonna like, we're just gonna create a space right here and push the minus 13 over. And then with that space, we're going to complete the square. So we're going to put in a number that works nicer so that we can write it as a parentheses squared. And we figure out that by taking half of 10 and then squaring it to get 25. Okay, so that's why we added plus 25. That's the number that completes the square. Now again, because we're not like finding answers, we're not going to add 25 to both sides of the equation. So we can't just write 1 plus 25 because that totally changes how much it's worth. You can't just randomly like add 25 to something. So what we actually end up doing is we subtract 25 at the end. And so adding 25 and subtracting 25 basically is like nothing because nothing changes. But what we're going to do is the plus 25, we're going to keep it with these first two and use it with the x squared plus 10x. The minus 25 is going to be over with this ostracized minus 13. So these numbers we just don't do anything with. We're just going to put them off to the side. So this perfect square set at the beginning, I'm going to write as a parentheses squared. So the number that was half is what goes right there. Just like before, the completing the square part is the same. The two numbers that we're not going to use, we just put together and we still don't do anything with them. We just put them together. But this is called vertex form because if you remember transformations forever ago, I mean, it felt like forever ago, it was 2 weeks. It was like 6 school days ago. A plus 5 in the parentheses would move your graph 5 left. It's opposite on the inside of the parentheses. So that would be 5 left. The minus 38 on the outside would be down 38. So this one reads exactly what it looks like. So your vertex would be at negative 5, so opposite, negative 38, same. And then we could draw the tip of our U there, and then draw our U. That would be the point of vertex form. Should we kind of do this next one semi together? Just to make sure you have the steps down. Just for time-wise, I want to make sure you guys have a little bit of time to ask questions if you want them. So we'll do this one together. We're going to write in vertex form and then find the vertex. And this is exactly what you'll have to do on the test. Okay, Morgan, who do we have?
2.
2, Owen. Owen, what would you do first?
First of all, I would half the minus 5x,
Okay, I can do that.
and then square that to make the last digit.
Okay, so that would become 25 over 4. So negative 5 squared and 2 squared. Okay, is this written correct?
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
Wait.
No, wait.
Over 2. Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
And then we would move the 3 next to it, so plus 3.
okay, good. I thought maybe you forgot about that.
And then minus 25 over 2.
Very nice, very nice. So these numbers we kind of just keep off to the side and we're not going to do anything with them. We're just going to put them together. The first three numbers, we kind of, three things, three terms, shouldn't say numbers. The first three terms, we kind of group together, and we focus on those three. We're gonna write them as a parentheses squared. All right, Morgan, who's gonna help me do that?
25.
Daniel's gone.
Say 9.
Charlie's gone.
5.
Ella.
X minus 5/2.
Perfect, perfect.
And.
Oh, you even give me this part already, okay.
Negative 13/4.
Excellent. How'd you get that? But that is definitely correct. How did you get the negative 13/4? Because I bet a lot of people in here are wondering that.
So,
3 is 3/1.
yeah,
Is that what did you common denominator?
yeah, I did the common.
Okay.
So I multiplied by 4.
Perfect. So this is like saying 12/4. So 12 minus 25 is negative 13. Okay, this is vertex form. So it's actually done. So these are going to feel a lot easier because you just do those first couple steps and you stop. There's nothing to solve. The only thing that we're going to take out of this is to figure out where the vertex would graph. First number is the opposite. So positive 5/2. Second number, same. So negative, that was really terribly writing there. Negative 13/4. These are the only two possible questions you would be asked from this problem. You might be asked for either one, but the only two possible things you could answer. And that's all the more there is to these. They can't get any more complicated because on this one we have fractions all throughout. That's literally as difficult as they can get. I guess it's possible they could have decimals or something, but in that case you'd be expected to use a calculator. So you wouldn't have to do it in your head. Okay, I will stop there. If you want to see another example, I will have it saved in Schoology. Like the notes are in Schoology already. So if you want to see this example, you certainly could. Otherwise, this is going to be the homework where I wanted to give you guys a couple minutes to try it. So then that way you could ask questions if you wanted to before you left.